Okay, welcome back. That was a wonderful presentation with Professor Yamaguchi present. And now we're going to move to Professor Korten, who has written many materials. And one book I have right now, announced one of his outstanding books is The Great Turning, and it's From Empire to Earth Community. Notice all of the questions that Yamaguchi and it's being thought about right here, from empire, that capitalism, communism dialectic going on there, and just dividing people, to earth community. I think actually that says just about everything that needs to be said for a good introduction. um, I'm going to go, if I can. I want to read a little bit more though. And I have my notes for David right over here. Oh, well, I don't have the ones I'm looking for actually. David Korten is a writer, lecturer, engaged as a global citizen, a student of psychology and behavioral systems. That one could be very useful right now. He's a former Harvard Business School professor, a member of the Club of Rome that Yamaguchi just talked about, and he may have thoughts there. A founding member of the Alliance for Ecological Civilization. We had a PhD student working on that just now with his question. And the founder of the Living Economies Forum. He is best known for his work, here we go. He is best known for his seminal work framing a new economy, including the international best-selling books When Corporations Rule the World. I believe that came out in the mid-1990s and was redone in the mid-teens, 2000 teens. The Post-Corporate World After the Capitalism, The Great Turning from Empire to Earth Community, and the white papers, Ecological Civilization and Eco-Economies for an Ecological Civilization. So that's a pretty powerful, that's actually the beginning, and there's other books too. Professor Korten, David, thank you for being a world citizen. And um, and thank you for your conversation. I've avoided trying to talk too much about you because I want you to have your own lecture. So, please start and share thoughts about how we might be able to walk into a better future, please.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that generous introduction. I am deeply honored to be speaking with you today at this opening session of the American Monetary Institute 2025 conference. The more I've prepared for this presentation, the more I've come to recognize the fundamental importance of monetary transformation if we're to have a viable human future. We're meeting here at a time of extraordinary political division and economic confusion. People know something is terribly wrong with the economy. This is one area where Donald Trump has it right. We're not just dealing with a broken system, we're dealing with a failed system. Unfortunately, he has no idea what the actual issues are. Federal and personal debts keep climbing, wages have stagnated, and savings and pensions feel increasingly fragile. Meanwhile, inequality continues to grow to unconscionable extremes as devastating environmental crises unfold around us. With rare exception, the explanations and solutions offered by our political leaders and by the mainstream media are at best partial truths. At worst, they are intentionally misleading scams. Now, I realize I need to be very clear that what I'm focused on here is a deep civilizational transformation. Money is only one aspect. It's a crucial aspect, but it's not like monetary reform in any sense will itself save us. The defining framework that I work with is the transition to an ecological civilization, which is essentially turning away from an economy that is devoted primarily to making money to an ecology that is devoted to serving the well-being of life. That means the living earth and all of its people. Now, that said, our defining topic for this conference is money. So we're going to focus on money to begin with. Now, throughout most of the human existence, our ancestors lived without it. I recently celebrated my 88th birthday. And in the travels of my youth, I regularly encountered peoples in Africa and Asia who lived happy lives with little need for money. Now, my generation completed the process of creating a world in which it is now nearly impossible to live in contemporary society without money. And I must admit that in the innocence of my youth, I contributed to that process in my work with third world business schools. Money can be a highly useful tool when used appropriately. But our current human dependence on money gives enormous power to those who currently create it, determine who gets it, and who does not. They use that power as a weapon to circumvent democracy, monopolize their control of Earth's resources, and enrich and empower themselves at the expense of what we have called civilization. To have a viable human future, we the people must now claim the power to create and allocate money and put that power to the service of all of Earth's people and of the living Earth itself, the being that birthed and nurtures us all. Fundamentally, we humans are living beings, not financial beings. We cannot live for long without a healthy living earth and the support and collaboration of our neighbors. We cannot eat, drink, or breathe money. When properly used, money can be a useful supplement. However, we must never treat money as a substitute for our responsibility to care for Earth and one another. We currently face competing crises: environmental, social, and financial. These crises are connected in ways I will get to in a moment. But since we're meeting as the American Monetary Institute, I want to focus first on the money, starting with the US debt now soaring out of control. Specifics differ by country. We will focus here on the United States. In first quarter 2025, US government debt accounted for $35.2 trillion. But our debt problem is not limited to the US government. US household debt reached a record $18.2 trillion, and US non-financial business debt was $21.8 trillion. Now, I recall the days when we thought $1 million was a lot of money. Now, note that $1 billion is 1,000 million dollars, and $1 trillion is 1,000 billion dollars. Workers and taxpayers are told the answer to paying down the US federal debt is austerity. Cut Social Security, slash Medicare, shrink public services, raise taxes on working families, and maybe we can bring the debt under control. Now, as most of you are aware, the only way to eliminate the debt I mean, this is what you're aware as members of the American Monetary Institute. The only way to eliminate the debt is to restructure the money system. That begins with the rarely asked question, why are we in debt in the first place? Why does a sovereign nation that issues its own currency depend for its money supply on public and private borrowing at interest from private bankers who we allow to create this money effortlessly from nothing at no cost to themselves? But then they charge us outrageous fees for our use of that money. The answer to this basic question is simple, though we seldom hear it spoken outside of the American Monetary Institute discussions. We are trapped in debt because we have turned over the power to create money, our money, to Wall Street. We rent from private bankers what should be our own sovereign currency. Our defining tasks as the AMI must be to build public awareness of this basic truth. As most of you already know, here is how the money trap works. When a commercial bank issues a loan, whether to buy a house, finance a business, pay taxes, speculate in financial markets, or purchase US Treasury bonds to fund public services, it does not lend out existing money from its vault. Rather, with a few computer keystrokes, it creates a new bank deposit out of nothing. That deposit becomes someone's temporary spending power on which they are expected to pay interest to the bank. The loan must be repaid with interest that the bank never created. The cost to the bank of creating the money to issue the loan is essentially zero. That interest becomes a stream of pure income to the bank. And when the loan principal is repaid by the borrower, the amount of the principal disappears, but the bank keeps the interest. This puts the rest of us on a built-in treadmill. Because the economy needs money to function, we in the federal government must constantly borrow more from the private bankers just to keep the economy from collapsing. But the accumulating interest we owe on that debt grows in perpetuity. For so long as we depend on this corrupt system, the interest on that debt, both public and private, can never be fully repaid. By design, under the current system, much of the debt is permanent. We must keep expressing the simple truth that the only way to eliminate our growing public and private debt is to transform the system by which we create money. Under the current system, if we eliminated all public and private debt, most of the money supply would vanish and the economy would crash. So year after year, we roll the debt forward. In that process, we pay hundreds of billions of dollars in interest to private bondholders, bankers, and hedge funds. Meanwhile, the privatized financial sector has become a factory of fictitious financial assets. Derivatives, collateralized obligations, cryptocurrencies, and other exotic financial instruments that inflate the paper wealth of the already rich without requiring them to produce anything of actual value. Most of the trading in these fictitious assets involves speculation, a form of gambling involving betting on the price movements of commodities, currencies, and even sovereign defaults, without the need to own the actual underlying assets. The contracts involved are often leveraged by multiple layers of debt by which speculators gain control of large pools of financial assets they do not actually own. When the system of fictitious assets collapses, as we saw happen in 2008, governments step in to rescue the speculators to prevent wider economic collapse. In that process, losses are socialized, profits are privatized, and societal inequity grows ever deeper. This is not a system designed to serve ordinary people. It is a system designed to serve financial predators, and it works very well in doing exactly that. In 2023 alone, the US government paid $659 billion in net interest, much of it to private banks, hedge funds, and wealthy investors, more than the entire federal budgets for education, housing, and energy. The predatory returns flowed overwhelmingly to the already obscenely wealthy. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans live with stagnant wages, unaffordable housing, ballooning medical bills, and collapsing infrastructure. The system works very, very well for the very, very rich. It fails for most other Americans. Now, here's where the problem becomes a bit delicate. Millions of Americans depend on pensions, retirement accounts, and Social Security benefits that are directly or indirectly tied to Treasury bonds. If we were to simply cancel the federal debt tomorrow, many of these retirement savings would disappear, and that would be profoundly unjust. Retirees, and workers did not design this failed system. They played by the rules, contributed their whole lives to creating real value through their labor. So part of our current challenge is to protect pensioners while ending the unearned windfalls of Wall Street. So how do we do that? I urge the American Monetary Institute to focus public attention on advancing an agenda of 4 essential interdependent parts, consistent with AMI's historical commitment to basic monetary reform. No element of this 4-part agenda is easily achieved, yet all 4 elements are essential to a viable human future. Success will require serious public education to which the AMI can make a defining contribution. Part 1, democratize the Federal Reserve. The Fed should be restructured as a public utility responsible for issuing debt-free, interest-free currency to meet essential public needs while stewarding the monetary commons. This means ending its role as a technocratic servant of financial elites. To achieve this, the Federal Reserve must be transformed from a tool of wealthy bankers into a transparent public institution accountable to Congress and the American people. Its mandate must shift from protecting Wall Street to serving society. That means prioritizing full employment and ecological regeneration. Part 2, stop government borrowing from Wall Street. The US government must restore the Treasury's authority to issue money directly, debt and interest free. This sovereign money can be spent into circulation to meet urgent national needs: renewable energy, healthcare, full employment, housing, transforming and renewing infrastructure, retirement security, and ecological restoration. It can also be used to buy back Treasury bonds, thus retiring debt without shrinking the money supply or harming pensioners. These 2 agenda items are part of the traditional AMI agenda. That agenda must now be expanded with the addition of 2 additional parts. Part 3, protect earned pensions. Social Security and legitimate retirement accounts must be guaranteed in full. Treasury holdings and pension funds can be redeemed with sovereign money or replaced with federally guaranteed bonds backed by the public credit. At the same time, speculative claims, the derivatives, hedge fund bets, crypto schemes must all be written down and ultimately abolished. Obligations to workers must be honored. Windfalls to financial predators need not be. Item Part 4, eliminate society's extremes of wealth and poverty while learning to live within Earth's limits. By ending interest payments to private financiers on federal debt, the US government can free up hundreds of billions of dollars every year. These financial resources can be redirected to strengthening Social Security, investing in jobs, providing care for people and Earth, and building worker and community-owned enterprises that root wealth in real production to provide good, fairly compensated jobs. To ensure fairness, we must also tax extreme wealth and speculative windfalls so that money creation does not fuel new concentrations of power devoted to reckless environmental devastation. We face an extreme global crisis of our own human making. According to the Global Footprint Network, the current consumption of Earth's 8.2 billion people would require 1.8 Earths to sustain. We have only one Earth, and it is the only planet we have yet identified with any current prospect of supporting life as we know it. Yet despite our current human overburden on finite Earth, approximately 3.4 billion people, nearly half of the world's human population, struggle to meet basic needs living on less than $5.50 a day. In short, a significant portion of the world's population lacks sufficient income to meet their essential needs in our modern money-dependent economy. It should be clear and a foundational moral principle that no one is entitled to excess for so long as anyone is deprived of the means to obtain the minimal essentials of a healthy, meaningful life. We hear a growing call for a universal guaranteed income to fill the global income gap. That call ignores the basic reality that we cannot eat money. Money is useless without working people engaged in essential care for Earth and its human population. Without human labor, money is worthless. Instead of a guaranteed income, we need a program to provide everyone with guaranteed living wage employment as caretakers of living Earth and its people. Across our communities and around the world, there is an extraordinary amount of work that urgently needs doing. Work that heals ecosystems, strengthens relationships, and ensures that every person can live with dignity and purpose. We do not suffer a shortage of willing workers. We suffer a failure of imagination and political will. We've faced this dilemma before. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, unemployment in the United States reached catastrophic levels. 1 in 4 Americans was out of work. Yet roads needed paving, rivers needed managing, forests needed replanting, and families needed food. In response, President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched what became one of the boldest and most beneficial public employment experiments in human history. through programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, the Works Progress Administration, the WPA, and the Public Works Administration, PWA, the federal government directly hired millions of Americans. They built trails, bridges, schools, theaters, and post offices. They restored forests and watersheds. They painted murals, wrote local histories, and brought the live theater to rural towns. They lifted up not only families and communities, but the spirit of a nation. The WPA alone employed more than 8 million people. The CCC aimed at young men gave more than 3 million workers housing, wages, and skills while planting over 3 billion trees and restoring thousands of acres of damaged land. These programs were not perfect. They excluded many women and people of color, and they were ultimately temporary. But they proved that the government can put people to work quickly and effectively in ways that serve the common good. Today, we face a different kind of crisis, but the lessons still apply. Once again, our society is marked by deep inequality, underemployment, and unmet human needs. But now the stakes are even higher. The living systems of Earth are in rapid decline. The climate is destabilizing. Our social fabric is fraying. The need for meaningful life-serving work has never been greater. Caregiving is one of the most urgent areas of unmet need. We are aging as a society, yet our care infrastructure is collapsing. Millions of elders need assistance and companionship. Families with children need affordable childcare. People with disabilities need daily support, and millions of potential caregivers, often women, immigrants, and young people, are eager to serve, but cannot find paid and dignified work. At the same time, those providing care are often underworked and underpaid. Our ecosystems, too, are crying out for human hands and hearts. From degraded forests to eroding coastlines, healing the earth will take generations of labor to restore wetlands, rebuild topsoil, protect pollinators, and steward water systems. The same is true for housing. In many communities, homes are unaffordable, overcrowded, or in disrepair, while thousands remain unsheltered. A national program to retrofit old buildings, build affordable homes, and convert underused properties into community housing that restores community life and reduces our dependence on private automobiles would create thousands of jobs while addressing a basic human need. Food systems need similar attention. Industrial agriculture has degraded our soils and displaced small farmers. Local regenerative farming can fulfill essential food needs, restore landscapes, and build resilience. But it requires people to do the planting, composting, harvesting, and educating. These are jobs that feed both body and spirit. The clean energy transition is another opportunity for purposeful work. We need people to install solar panels, retrofit buildings, maintain microgrids, and contain wind and geothermal systems. The work is not only technical, it's communal. Energy resilience must be designed with and for communities, especially those communities historically left behind. The transition to electric cars is only part of our challenge. Ultimately, we must eliminate our dependence on private automobiles. Streets should serve people, not vehicles. Walking, biking, and electrified public transit must replace the costly burden of private automobiles. Transit hubs can integrate housing, shops, and services to make daily needs accessible without a car. The payoff is cleaner air, safer streets, and healthier lives. Schools need more tutors, mentors, and social promotional emotional guides. Communities need artists to tell their stories, musicians to lift their voices, and actors to help us imagine new futures. Democracy itself needs people who organize meetings, support inclusion, and facilitate participatory budgeting and community planning. In all these areas, we still allow human potential to go to waste. That does not have to be the case. Once we turn the money system into a public utility, we can address many essential public needs with no addition to either public or private debt. Some will suggest that artificial intelligence will reduce the need for human labor. When used wisely and ethically, AI can enhance the impact of human work. But AI cannot replace it. It cannot hold the hand of an elder in pain. It cannot plant a forest or teach young people how to care for soil. It cannot facilitate a difficult community meeting. These are not tasks for automation. They are expressions of our humanity. With imagination, courage, and commitment, we can take the next step toward an economy that honors all people, serves the earth, and prepares the way for an ecological civilization. It is not only possible, it is necessary. Here is the bottom line. We must learn to meet our needs in ways consistent with the needs of the living earth. We must do all of this in ways that protect pensioners, eliminate inequality and unpayable debt, free the United States and the world from Wall Street's grip, and meet the essential needs of people on Earth in meaningful and satisfying ways. The financial reforms essential to this agenda do not represent a new or radical idea. Lincoln issued greenbacks during the Civil War. The Need Act, introduced by Dennis Kucinich in 2011, proposed the same idea. Throughout history, we have examples of sovereign governments issuing money to meet public needs. The defining message of the American Monetary Institute has long been a call to move beyond the corrupt money system we now live under, in which private banks create money from nothing, lend it to us at interest, and hold our government perpetually in debt, all to enhance the power and reckless spending of the already obscenely rich. This is a stupid, predatory, and ultimately suicidal system. I'm sure that many of you here understand the details of these financial scams better than I do. The essential bottom line is that a healthy, truly democratic society cannot exist while dependent on private financiers for the money on which we depend for our daily living. It is time to treat our money system as a public utility managed for the public common good. Only then can we provide secure, meaningful, and adequately compensated work for all people and build the just and sustainable economy that living Earth and its people deserve. Thank you. So back over to you, Stephen.
Well, I'm speechless. I'm absorbing it, and I had an advanced copy, and I'm still absorbing. So, oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really look to the American Monetary Institute as the driving force in communicating this foundational, essential message about money.
Well, a little earlier on, I took notes throughout, and you talked about the idea of that we're in a good place to, because of our understanding of money, to bring about education, and that's education as curriculum And there are monetary reformers, and we haven't worked on this, but they're from Belgium, Denmark. We know specific countries where there's educators who are ready to work on this problem, and it's just sitting waiting to be done. And I've 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 done middle school curriculum. I've written middle school curriculum. I told my principal I can't teach personal finance anymore, and I had to teach the whole system, or I wasn't going to teach anything. And he told me I go ahead. And we even made a movie. These fifth, sixth graders, we made a movie as if Ben Franklin came back to life. And the kids took him around the neighborhood, and he would ask questions, and then they would ask questions. And so there are ways to have excellent education going on, and it's a very strong resource, and we got to get it to our children. So
One of the things that I think is essential for AMI to look at very closely is that there's a tendency to complicate these, impossibly complicate these conversations.
Mhm.
The essentials are basically quite simple, and we need to work very hard on expressing them in the most simple, accessible language. Now, one of the things that strikes me is an idea of creating a kind of a hierarchy of very clear publications to be used for this educational process. You know, it might start with a slogan that can be put on a banner.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
One
We wrote
sentence.
slogans last month.
Yeah. And then, you know, the next level, you know, a statement that people can bring into an ordinary conversation.
Mhm.
And then a sample for a newsletter column, and on down to uh, the kind of textbooks you were talking about
Mhm.
that really go into deep detail and the historical background and all the
Yeah.
complex details.
Yeah. And just one moment, I just want to mention, because another idea has gotten a lot of attention, but one of the concerns you brought up was pension money now being in treasury bonds. The banks take their pound of flesh off of it, and but the pensioners get enough to subsist. And
Yes.
that's been going on. And Soli Omarova, who was nominated to be controller of the currency, but got put down in 2020 in her confirmation hearings. And what happened there are what she suggested later on was that we would have not a national infrastructure bank that's now being suggested, which is very private bank oriented type cash in type thing too, but a national investment authority. And so the state can be very much in good investments, in directing and guiding investments, and organizations, unions, companies can put pension into that, and the money is moving with society step by step with the how the society is working and producing. So I think that needs to be explored. And she's been working on corporate law. We've been trying to get her, but we can study it some more on our own. But and one of the ways is you can go back all the way to Thomas Paine in his agricultural book, and he writes about pensions too. So we've got to think about how to do this. And it's but anyhow, I think there's some doable ideas and we can make it not too complex.
Well, one of the other foundational ideas that I actually did not bring into this presentation, but it's very foundational to my larger work. It has to do with the institution of the corporation
Hmm.
and the need to recognize that essentially the corporate institution that we now have was a creation of kings back in the early days of empire to solidify their power beyond the reach of democracy.
Mm.
And part of the larger transformation that we have to navigate is actually converting our publicly traded, well, they're not just publicly traded, but privately traded corporations into community cooperative ownership institutions, worker cooperatives, community cooperatives of various kinds, so that instead of being focused on maximizing financial returns for very wealthy owners, they are actually connected to the well-being of communities, and they're
Hmm.
managed by communities for the well-being of the community.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I sometimes tell the story of my dad, who was a small business owner in our community, and he loved making money, but he just continually repeated, if you are not in business to serve your customer, by which he meant his community, you have no business being in business.
Oh, very good.
I think that's foundational. That we have absolutely no place for businesses that are in business only to maximize the profits of their owners.
Yeah, we have to tie a social responsibility. I see a question from Nevis. Nevis, you want to suggest a question here?
Thank you so much, Professor David, and thanks for the chance, Steve. Uh, excuse me. Uh, I wanted to touch upon a concept that I've been passionately thinking about, but you mentioned in your talk that it is not a realistic option. Maybe I'm not choosing the right choice of word. Um, about universal basic income per se. I Before I let you answer that question, I want to give a certain examples historically. Let's say we could talk about. Let me look up my notes here. Just a second. Um, Telephones. From where it was, maybe you could be able to relate from your younger days when telephone was very rare to be found in any home. Today, to every person has a modern computer equivalent mobile phone with the access to internet in just a matter of so many days. And then the publishing industry of news and publishing to internet that we have today. So what I'm trying to come to a point is we've seen historically in multiple segment of industries, centralization has moved towards decentralization, and it has been a pattern. So my 2 cents on the topic of monetary reform is the same, that why can't we move from these centralized systems, even if it's public money creation? Why can't we decentralize it through universal basic income? Yes, we still need to work. We need to go back to our offices or wherever the farms and do all the work, but that's out of scope to what we're talking about. Why no to universal basic income? And I want to top it with one more notch, asking uh, why not a complementary global currency? I see so many benefits out of it. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this.
So Nevis, I want to get it right too. So one question is a complementary currency similar to the one you gave to Dr. Yamaguchi.
Mhm.
And the first question, can you repeat that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. But I was giving context that historically we've seen centralized industries moving to decentralization. I gave a few examples. Why can't the same happen in the monetary reform world as well, in the form of a universal basic income and, if possible, a complementary global currency? That's second part of my question. But first part is why universal basic income is a bad idea, because it handles the issuance of newly created money fairly to every citizen and living human being, so that it's their choice on how they want to spend or fund wherever they want to do. That's the most logical right thing I could see as a person in my 20s. Yeah.
Yeah, Nevis, let me try to tease a little bit to prepare your question a little bit. And when you say UBI or universal basic income, say if the Need Act had been successful in 2011, and we now have a public money system, and the Fed, as Dr. Korten suggests, is bringing new money into circulation for the well-being of society, and there's guidance going on. Would that be good, or would you like to see whatever money comes into society going so much to each citizen first, and then a taxing system, or people,
Yeah.
how would it work then?
I've been working with my professors. I'm a public policy student, by the way, on formulating a system in very short few words. What I could say is a complementary currency where we make a person log into this system technically and prove their birth date. When I prove the birth date of a person, I calculate the number of days that they've ever lived and retroactively compensate through a new currency for every living human being. And then, if no matter the first player who joins the system or the last player who joins the system gets to vote on the universal basic income generation rate and demerge rate. So it's a democratically governed money system, as opposed to again giving it back into the hands of the centralized powers, whether it's private banks or governments. Why can't it be people owned currency where people themselves govern it the way they want it to?
One of the aspects I like of your thinking took place in colonial America, and at other times, whenever you have a complementary currency, it serves as a great educational tool for the people on the ground to think about money and its importance and how you can use it in society. And when it should be, say, you use that word, I think, demurge, or when it should be taxed or not taxed, and people can be in harmony with each other still, and they understand the money system because it's right in front of them, and they see the whole system in front of them. I like that idea of it. Professor Korten, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, we have become so focused on money as essential to our means of living that we have a tendency to think of money as the answer to our problems. Now, one of the defining experiences of my life, which was actually the framework that led to my second best-selling book, The Post-Corporate World, was a meeting with a microbiologist named Mei Wan Ho in China. She gave me she introduced herself to me at an international conference once and said, "I know your work." She said, "I'm a microbiologist. I'm a new biologist, and I think my work is relevant to what you do." Now, my field is organization. I've never had anybody say that a microbiologist might have some useful input to my thought. But what she proceeded to tell me in just a minute was, she said, take the example of the human body. Each of our bodies is comprised of literally trillions of living cells that self-organize together to create and maintain this vessel of our consciousness, an instrument of our agency. Then she went on and pointed out that the living earth is itself an organism that on a larger scale exhibits essentially the same principles. That all of the living beings on earth, the way they relate together, essentially through their labor, they end up creating and maintaining the conditions on this planet that makes Earth distinctive among all of the bodies in the universe that we have yet identified. My response to that is the scientific terminology, holy shit. My academic field is organization. I have a PhD in organization from the Stanford Business School. I taught that subject at the Harvard Business School, and I had never heard anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are those among us. I mean, like I am at an age where I'm beginning to experience the deterioration that is inevitable at the end of our lives, the physical deterioration. So I need more and more help and support, and I'm less able to do the physical things that are essential to my upkeep. So I need a means for that support. So if I didn't have my own savings, I would need public support to get it. But I think in terms of a society, we have to think primarily, we need to think first of all about how do we organize in a way around our labor, our human labor, so that we create communities of working people that together within their community create and maintain the conditions essential to the well-being of their community. And of course, these communities need to be organized so that they work together as elements of the living earth, so that on the whole, we are maintaining the health and productivity and well-being of the living earth. So that's why I get a little nervous about anything that would reinforce the tendencies of portions of our population to expect that somehow, if they just got enough money, they wouldn't have to exert themselves in any discernible way. They could essentially act like the money mega patrons who can generate millions of dollars, billions of dollars, essentially producing nothing of real value. Anyhow, it's kind of a big issue, but I think it's very foundational to the primary difference between a guaranteed employment versus guaranteed income.
Professor Korten, I think that might be a good enough answer for right now, Nevis. It's a good meditation answer right now for all of us. There's 3 more questioners, and also we've already gone 15 minutes over the time we thought of.
Yeah.
Even on the second go around, we thought of. So how are you feeling? Can you handle another question? Are you ready for a break, or what's good?
No, I'm up for whatever.
Well,
wherever you want to go.
Well, Sue Peters is next, and we have two gentlemen after that. Well, let's see what we can do.
Okay.
Sue, you have a thought or question? Or maybe Sue's been covering the chat for me too, and so she may be bringing up a question there.
Yes, I have a question from the chat from Mike Holden. The question is, does David have a framework for government money creation and distribution? How much money should be created and how should it be spent?
Well, the question of how much money there's no way I can tell you that. I think it's something that we're going to have to figure out as we move along. But the question of how should it be spent, I don't know. My preference is to spend it into circulation, financing, primarily, meeting our social retirement needs and things like that. But beyond that, financing our employment, meeting the needs of both earth repair and the care and well-being of people. That would be the simple answer.
Sound good, Sue?
Thank you.
I don't know who is next, John or Eric. Let's go with Eric, and then if it's not too long, we'll get to John.
Eric is from the Philippines, where I lived for 10 years. So good to hear from you, Eric.
Hello. I know Mr. Korten for almost 2 decades. I have read his writings and books, and I read these articles in the Stanford University magazine. A friend gave me, and I've learned that I do agree with Mr. Korten 100%, and he's very right. And I think Americans who heard about his talk should support his advocacy to end the problem of global poverty. But the global poverty is not only material; it's monetary, as C.H. Douglas talking about the problem of monetary poverty based on debt interest, and that's the problem in the U.S. and across, particularly here in the Philippines, that left and right we are in deep troubles. And I think David Korten is a member of Club of Rome, and his articles "When Corporations Rule the World" and "Change the Future and the Story: Living Economy for Living Earth" are very interesting articles. And his experiences working and living in the in Latin Africa and Asian region. The problem is how can we solve the problem of poverty when the U.S. itself is not changing in terms of eradicating the debt finance disaster capitalism, and how could it influence the other allied nation, particularly Philippines and the rest of Asian region, to eliminate on this. In my attempts for almost 3 decades here in the Philippines, it's been unsuccessful because the global elites and for example, the oligarchies are really, really, really against the monetary reform solutions to end the problem of debt finance that causes poverty and crisis of all kinds here in the Philippines. So, could you emphasize, Mr. Professor David Korten, to explain about the eradication of monetary poverty rather than material poverty? And thank you, and I agree with you, and you are one of the best speakers in this AMI Forum 2025. God bless.
Well, you say compare monetary
Poverty. Monetary poverty.
poverty.
With what? Compare monetary poverty. What else should we think about?
To material poverty. There is a comparison between material poverty. We are in the age of plenty. And I do believe that UBI is necessary. There's no lack of money, actually, unless they are not monopolized or controlled. The control of the money is the main problem that causes material poverty. We have lots of things that we need, but the money is scarce, losing its value, and that's the causes of poverty, even here in the Philippines. Thank you.
That's why I urge that we devote that money to guaranteed employment at a living wage. That's the way to get money to people instead of leaving the creation of money to billionaire bankers who are mainly interested in using it to grow their own financial income generally at the expense of the poor. So, I mean, they're basically arguing for more well-paid jobs for Filipinos, I guess would be one way to say it.
That's impossible. We are now.
Impossible. Why is it
It's
impossible?
Yeah, it's impossible. Employment here is in the low rate, and many graduates. We have tens of 20,000s of graduates of college and are employed because there is no available employment. And Filipinos, there's a brain drain. They're being sent abroad to seek job employment overseas, send money back home, and pay the interest to the debt. We're
Yeah.
running to 17 trillion national debt. Big problem is employment. Are really, and there are Filipinos in America, I know, and they're working hard. They're struggling to the bone with financial asphyxiating situations, and I don't know what else to do. But the creation of money debt free can provide, at least alongside with the income of legal employment of dividend money, as I advocate a UBI to every citizen per annum, that can help.
I'm
so that
confused
we
here.
can finance consumption.
I'm confused here. What what I'm saying is, use that money to provide well-paid employment. Both in the Philippines and in the United States. So I'm a little unclear what.
Yeah, I think what Eric wants to point out is that the situation, there's so much political power in the Philippines, they can't even get started in trying to change the system, and that it's so top-down controlled,
Yeah.
they feel like there's no hope at all.
Well, I would imagine that you've noticed what's been happening in the United States currently. And
Eric is very familiar with, he is.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder and harder for me to go to sleep at night with the, and particularly to maintain my optimism about the human possibility. So I acknowledge and I agree with your pessimism, but I would also argue that if we don't move forward a vision of possibility, then our situation is hopeless.
Yeah.
Well, I do see conversations like the one that we're having here, and the thinking of the American Monetary Institute of going forward. That's part of what gives me some margin of hope that perhaps deep change is possible.
Eric travels around the Philippines. He speaks 4 or 5 indigenous languages, and he goes to Manila too, and he argues with the government for a change. And he tells the people we need to have change. And it isn't, we get the same report back. It's not a good report. So, but
Mr. David Korten, excuse me, has a powerful voice in the U.S. to fight for real change in the economy per se, the money reform. The moment you're a speaker there in the AMI can influence even in the politician. You're an international man, writer, author. You traveled in the U.S., Africa, and Europe. You have some powerful bargaining power to speak with the politician, even here in the Philippines. I talk with the politicians here across the parties, senators, congressmen, economists, etc., central bankers, IMF, World Bank, etc. But I've been disappointed because they're lying. Indeed, they're lying. They came from America. They came from Europe. They came from elsewhere. But they don't really understand the situation of the poor about the money system. They don't even know how money is created by the banking system. At least most of you know about it. But most of these leaders are stupid. They don't understand, or maybe they have a conspiracy that they should not listen about the appeal of the people to reform the system. We are in the entire problems of litanies of problems, from calamities to money system to debt. We're now 17 trillion national debt. And we're paying 800 billion when millions and tens of millions of Filipinos are suffering. We're buying weapons from India. America is sending us weapons. Can we cure poverty on this? We need the solution, the manner reform. AMI is the best one, but the AMI is limited also in terms of fighting for reform, even in the US. And most of you are probably helpless in some ways. Thank you.
Well, thank you,
One
Eric.
thing that struck me about Carl's presentation was what he said about our education system for in economics and finance, that most academics do not dare challenge the money system for fear of losing their academic standing. I thought that was a very important insight.
Yeah, and it was clearly documented from how he presented it too.
Yeah.
And those two chapters he had us read ahead of time that he used to help explain the situation, but also it takes down MMT at the same time. And but it gives us an avenue. He does at the same time. He gives us an avenue, Eric, for pushing forward. So we're trying to go more towards we Dr. Korten here is saying, yes, we've got to go towards education, and we've got to go more from history and theory to more campaigning and getting out there more directly. And we'll see how things are evolving. And we're thinking of you too, Eric, in the Philippines. We have one more question from.
Let me
Go
just
ahead.
say one of the things that I came to realize about human beings from the years I lived and worked abroad is that we are creations of the mind, or creatures of the mind. And we are creatures of the stories by which we define ourselves. And we live by those stories, and those stories can differ dramatically from one culture to another. Now, the other thing that is key in relation to that is that the human mind can change in an instant. It's not that we necessarily do change in an instant, but that is the primary barrier that we face. It's the thinking in our minds. And part of that thinking is about money. If I just had more money, everything would be fine. That obviously is not true.
Yes.
The society is not structured, is not organized to take care of people and earth in the ways that are essential to our actual well-being. So foundational to all of this is changing our story, essentially about the relationship between money and life. Anyhow, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yes. So I've been familiar with you since the very beginning of Yes Magazine and various conferences that you were
Which no
a
longer
speaker at.
exists.
Well, yes, I know, but the message of Yes Magazine was these are all the examples of people taking matters into their own hands.
Yes.
That was the message of the magazine. And there are so many still. I mean, right now the Michael Schumann is taking up that banner with
Yeah.
the localization movement and local investing and crowdfunding and those kinds of things. But what I'm curious about is the the thing that gives us confidence is the sense that we have agency that the culture denies we have. And that's where the complementary currencies come in. That's where the farmers market comes in. That's where community supported agriculture comes in. That's where all of the things that we could be doing to creating worker-owned cooperatives,
Yeah.
etc. Those are the things that I would imagine the campaign would have a campaign would have the most success with. What do you think?
Well, certainly the localization of the economy is key. And that is part of this deeper understanding of life.
Right.
Life organizes from the bottom up, not the top down.
Right. And the effort, the idea that we should campaign and get our political corporate toadies. I mean, to change the system. I mean, they just won't do it. It's a pipe dream. But if we get together and talk about the things that we can do, the collaborative, cooperative businesses, there's a very powerful movement that hardly anyone knows about in the whole succession problem. So the founder retires, and there are organizations now all across the country that enable the workers to buy them out. To my mind, those are the things that we should be supporting and touting and saying, look, once we feel like we have agency, then money's an agreement. I mean, we can just say to all the worker-owned cooperatives, hey, let's use this currency that we control, that we can issue for all the transactions that happen between all of our businesses. I mean, imagine if Mondragon, just Mondragon used its own currency and encouraged everybody who was buying things from Mondragon companies to join that currency. And that's the idea of common good in Greenfield. But I could go on all night, as Stephen knows, so I'll stop there.
I would just say, very good. I align very much with what you're saying. I'm not sure how I feel about sort of multiple. Well, I do. You know, I like local currencies that are actually created and managed and used by a community, which helps them come together. Now, the the thing that I don't appreciate is the cryptocurrency crowds and the folks that are creating money just to enrich themselves and buy out society. So it's a very complicated.
Right. So the thing is that it's really about governing. It's not about money. It really
Correct.
is never really about the money. What it really is about is can we create a sense, a collective sense? Because you're saying, wherever you are in the world, there are stories that unite. Can we tell a new story? Can we
Yeah,
tell a story that counters the misogynist story that's coming to us from the culture? Right? If
absolutely,
we can
absolutely.
create a different story, the story that I really do want to have purpose in my life, I really do want to have the agency to accomplish the things that I feel called by spirit to do, right?
Yeah,
Now, if we're together and that's the story that we're telling each other, we all want to make sure that we have the agency that we deserve on the basis of our humanity. At that moment, we can issue money because that's what it is. It's an agreement. It facilitates value for value trades. That's
well
it.
said. Well said.
So
We're
thank
gonna
you,
have to
David.
we're gonna have to give John more space here.
No, you don't.
Hmm. We do a fair amount of listening. I wa- I have John's, well, anyhow, I won't go into that. I have John's book, and I had a website, John, similar to your book, and it made me curious to see. It was actually called Children Community Earth.
Uh-huh.
And so it was very community oriented because I wanted all children to grow up with healthy families, but in a healthy community too. So um and and as a folklorist, I would hear those stories.
Yeah.
I know I've interviewed African Americans in the neighborhood, and if your parents didn't get you, your neighbor might get you too, as a parent, because you're accountable to more than one. So anyhow, it was, there's a lot we can do, and the amount of prisons we have and how we handle society, we're just destroying ourselves as it is right now. So we've got a lot of work to do, and
So
I'm going to put you two are going to go on the honorary education curriculum team now.
okay,
So
good.
yeah, so thank you both advisors here. And I'm thinking maybe we can, how are you feeling? Maybe we've done pretty well. We were going to close it out. I was going to talk this long with just the group and end it now. And now you've ended it, Dr. Professor Korten.
Yeah, and my wife just poked her head in to tell me that dinner is ready. So
Okay, well, bon appetit, and you deserve it.
yeah.
Have something special for us too. But,
Okay.
but also,
David.
as Studs Terkel would say, take it easy, but take it.
Yeah, we're actually having crab cakes, which is one of our favorites.
Oh, good.
Very good.
On
And
sale
we
at our
tell
local
her,
market.
thank you for sharing you with us too.
Thank you, and I hope this is just the first of many encounters. We got a lot of work
Yes.
to do.
Yes, we do.
Indeed.
Thank you. And thank you to your wife too.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye all. Well,
We're done.
yes, Lucille. I think maybe we are done, because we got to be up tomorrow morning and we got to be ready to go again. And we got some hard hitters who are well, we'll see. They're gonna deal with the problems we have with society, and we have two gentlemen and John here that are healers, but we got to know what we're up against, and so we're going to get a heavy dose of that during this conference at times too. So anyhow, have a great evening, everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll start again in let's see, 2, 6, about 10 hours, 11 hours, somewhere right in there. Okay.
Good. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good night,
Well
all,
done.
and Siberian Yupik.
If you want to save the chat, you click the 3 dots at the top of the chat, open chat, and you should have it in there.
Save the chat. I put some stuff in there that might be right on what you're looking for. Okay.
Okay, great.
It's about seniorage.
Oh,
Seniorage.
Very
yeah,
important.
that's a good term.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Eric, too. Have a good night, Eric. And we'll see you around the bend soon, I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless
Thank you,
you.
Alfonso.
Okay. Bye-bye all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.